The 10,000 feet figure stood in the sky. All the energy bodies in the heavenly tomb under it shrunk and trembled. The frightening pressure seemed to be about to cause their bodies to explode. Xiao Xian's body completely faded in the sky. Those old eyes were filled with a pleased expression as they vanished. The huge figure continued to kneel in the sky after Xiao Xian's body paled. It was a long time later before that huge body slowly shrunk. Finally, it turned into the size of an ordinary person and quietly stood in the sky. Ancestor. Xiaoyan looked towards the spot where Xiao Xian had vanished and muttered softly. He extended his hand and gently clenched it onto the empty space. An invisible light spot that an ordinary person could not see appeared in his hand after he clenched it. This was Xiao Xian's life imprint. Only those whose soul had stepped into the D state could see such a life imprint. Otherwise, even if one's Do Qi had reached the advanced 9-star Do Sheng class, one would still be unable to detect this extremely mysterious existence. From a certain point of view, the current Xiao Xian could be basically considered to have completely vanished. That ultimate expert, who had once dominated the Do Qi continent, had completely disappeared from the world. However, this was not the case from Xiao Yan's point of view. After he had stepped into the D state, this life imprint might perhaps be able to bestow life to Xiao Xian again. However, even after having his soul advance into the D state, Xiao Yan was unable to do something like this. Perhaps he would only be able to do it after he had truly advanced into the legendary Do D class in the future. Regardless of what it was, there was ultimately still a hope. This hope might be distant, but it had not completely disappeared. The invisible life imprint slowly rose in Xiao Yan's palm, after which it entered his brow and was guarded by his world-like vast and mighty spiritual strength. Perhaps, after a long time, this old man, who had given up everything for the Xiao clan, would be able to once again appear in this world. Xiao Yan gently sighed after keeping the life imprint. He lowered his head and glanced at the heavenly tomb world. Although only 2 months had passed, it had only been less than half a month in the Central Plains. However, Xiao Yan had in reality spent nearly 2 years within the heavenly tomb. He had only managed to completely refine the heavenly tomb soul after spending 2 years. Fortunately, the tomb within the heavenly tomb had a different flow of time. Otherwise, there was no telling just how the outside world would have changed by the time he exit from his retreat in 2 years' time. D-state soul. Xiao Yan gently clenched his hand. His eyes looked into the distance, and a strange state of mind rose from within his heart. This feeling was as though the entire heavenly tomb was under his control. Explode. Xiao Yan extended his hand. He suddenly grabbed at the empty space. A stone mountain hundreds of thousands of feet from him exploded into dust without any warning. His spiritual strength had spread over every part of the heavenly tomb with just a mere thought. The area which it could cover was many times greater than what Xiao Yan could achieve in the past. His attack would be able to reach any spot that his soul could reach, even if it was tens of thousands of kilometers away. The D-state soul and the perfect heavenly state only had the difference of a single step. However, one was the sky and the other was the earth. There was no way to compare the two. Only after truly experiencing the great strength of the D-state would one understand why many were unable to leap through this universe like barrier despite trying to do so all their lives. This was because the two, one was a god while the other was a mortal. Perhaps it is time to leave. Xiao Yan's body was suspended in the sky. Xiao Xian had already vanished. There was nothing in this heavenly tomb that he could not bear to part with. However, due to him having devoured the heavenly tomb soul, Xiao Yan could sense that he had an absolute control over this realm. In other words, even after he left the Gu realm in the future, he would be able to easily open a spatial tunnel that leads into the heavenly tomb realm from anywhere. Moreover, Anyone who wished to tear open a spatial crack and enter the heavenly tomb could only do so with his permission. From a certain point of view, Xiao Yin was just like the owner of this heavenly tomb. He could decide on who could enter and exit it. Xiao Yin felt a little surprise at this accompanying gift. Although the rich energy of this heavenly tomb was of little use to him with his current strength, the difference in the flow of time, as compared to the central planes, was quite attractive. After all, it was able to greatly increase the effectiveness of one's training. This would be an extremely good aid to both him and his faction. I have safe the need to build my own realm. Xiao Yin smiled. He was quite satisfied with this accompanying gift. After all, if he wished to build his own realm, it would not possess such a unique ability. This was because such an ability was something that only an elite Dou-Di possessed. Xiao Yin suppressed the emotions within his heart. His finger gently drew past the space in front of him. A spatial crack line appeared. His eyes once again swept over this realm before he stepped into the crack. The space wiggled and he disappeared in front of the countless pairs of eyes. A couple of figures were standing in the air above the vast mountains of the Gu realm. All of them were frowning as they looked at the water ripple like slowly fluctuating space. Clan head Gu Yuan, what has happened? Lei Ying looked at Gu Yuan beside him and asked in surprise. Half a month has passed. If Xiao Yin do not come out, the Hun clan might really end up killing his father. Yin Jin by the side also opened his mouth and said, Xiao Yin did not show any signs of coming out ever since he had entered the heavenly tomb. Moreover, the day that they had agreed with the Hun clan was about to arrive. The heavenly tomb has already been shut. The spatial tunnel of this place is also completely blocked. I have tried to open a spatial tunnel earlier, but I was repelled by a force. That feeling was as though the current heavenly tomb possessed an owner. Gu Yuan frowned tightly. The words he spoke greatly shocked everyone. There was only one owner of the heavenly tomb. It was the elite Dou-Di who had created it. The heavenly tomb had remained without an owner for so many years. Although they had once thought of refining it, all of them had failed without exception. A realm created by a Dou-Di was far from what they were able to control. Hence, even with the mental fortitude of the two of them, they involuntarily felt some disbelief after hearing Gu Yuan's words. However, they understood that given Gu Yuan's strength, it was naturally impossible that he was mistaken. In that case, Xiao Yin GG. Sun Er's pretty face became a little pale after hearing those words from beside Gu Yuan. She was uninterested to know whether the heavenly tomb has an owner. However, Xiao Yin was currently inside. How would Xiao Yin return if Gu Yuan was unable to open a spatial tunnel? I will try again. Gu Yuan's expression was a little gloomy. With his current strength, even if the heavenly tomb really did possess a mysterious owner, it would be impossible for the latter to prevent him from entering it. The seal formed by Gu Yuan's hands changed after his voice sounded. Immediately, the energy around them swiftly turned into a 10,000 feet large giant energy hand in the sky. After which, he grabbed ruthlessly at the fluctuating space. A huge dark shadow covered the surrounding mountain range. The huge energy palm was extremely quick. In a flash, it had appeared outside the space. However, the former was about to smash onto the space when the latter's surging speed suddenly became even more intense. Soon after, a fluctuation swiftly spread from within and heavily collided with the huge palm. It actually forcefully scattered this attack from Gu Yuan. This sudden unexpected change caused everyone to be dull. What kind of strength did Gu Yuan possess? He was one of the strongest individuals in this world. Even someone as strong as Lei Ying would have to use all of his strength in order to resist this attack. Yet, this strike had actually been scattered from a mere fluctuation? This is spiritual fluctuation? How is this possible? The shock continued for an instant before Lei Ying and Yin Jin recovered and exclaimed, pushing back a palm strike from Gu Yuan by relying only on a spiritual fluctuation. Just what kind of terrifying spiritual strength was it? Something is wrong. Set up formation. The three immortals of the Gu clan behind Gu Yuan suddenly had grave expressions. They let out a low cry, and many experts from the Gu clan swiftly flew out from the surrounding mountain range. Do Qi surged and swiftly gathered. Sir, may I know who are you? This is the Gu clan. We are only here to receive someone and do not have any other plans. Gu Dao cried out loud with a solemn expression after the formation was set up. A spatial tunnel slowly appeared in the fluctuating space after Gu Dao's voice sounded. Immediately, a figure slowly stepped forward in front of the many anxious eyes belonging to the experts from the Gu clan. Ugh! Isn't this lineup a little too great to simply receive someone? That figure stepped out from the spatial tunnel. At a glance, he saw the formation being placed in the sky and the many experts from the Gu clan waiting solemnly throughout the mountains. His expression quickly became a little interesting. Xiao Yin. Everyone were stunned after seeing the figure stepping out from the spatial tunnel. There was a top expert who had exchanged blows with the clan head earlier. We were just, Gu Dao sighed in relief. With a wave of his hand, he got everyone to relax slightly. He smiled towards Xiao Yin. Before he could finish speaking, however, he saw a shock suddenly surging onto Gu Yuan's face. Immediately, he ceased speaking. The one who had fought earlier was you? Gu Yuan's eyes stared at Xiao Yin. A great storm rose within his heart. Everyone, including Sun Er, Yin Jin, and Lei Ying, had stunned faces the moment they heard these words. The subsequent reply from Xiao Yin caused these stunned expressions to become even denser. That, I think so. D-State Soul. How is this possible? Everyone were stunned as they looked at the young figure who had exited from the spatial tunnel. Even with Gu Yuan's calmness, his face was still involuntarily filled with a disbelief. Although a D-State Soul was not as shocking as a true elite Do D, but it was ultimately related to the latter. It should be known that even the souls of those experts like Yin Jin and Lei Ying, who had reached the 8-star Dosheng class, had yet to reach this level. Moreover, all of them clearly remembered that half a month ago, Xiao Yan's soul was still at the perfect heavenly state. Half a month. What could be done in half a month? A brief period of training could swiftly exhaust half a month's time. Yet, Xiao Yan's spiritual strength had undergone an overwhelming transformation within this half a month. Xiao Yin, who had just returned from the heavenly tomb, involuntarily shook his head as he looked at his surroundings, which had suddenly become completely silent. Although only half a month had passed in the outside world, 2 years had passed inside the tomb of the heavenly tomb. Hence, Xiao Yin was unsurprised the others would feel that it was inconceivable. It was not too difficult to imagine that 2 years of training and the seemingly endless vast and mighty spiritual strength of the heavenly tomb soul allowed him to reach this stage. How did you manage to do it? Yin Jin licked his lips and finally could not help but ask. Although he did not focus on training his soul, he had still trained for so many years. However, his soul had currently remained at the perfect heavenly state. There was still an unknown distance to the D-State Soul. Ancestor Xiao Xian had given me a gift. Xiao Yin replied without giving a detailed explanation. Yin Jin and Lei Ying were startled after hearing Xiao Yan's words. They immediately smiled bitterly and shook their heads. The admiration they had for this person had reached the peak. This person was indeed worthy of once being the strongest person on the Do Qi continent. Despite having been dead for so many years, he still possessed such a terrifying ability. Have you obtained the method to revive Xiao Xian? Gu Yuan also gradually calmed down. His eyes glanced at the space behind Xiao Yin and asked. Xiao Yin became quiet after hearing this. He shook his head and softly replied, Ancestor's soul fragment has already vanished from within the heavenly tomb. Gu Yuan was startled. He looked at Xiao Yin before sighing softly. Although he was unaware of just what had happened within the heavenly tomb, it was likely that Xiao Yan's soul advancement should be related to the vanishment of Xiao Yan's soul. His expression became a little complicated as he thought of this. His relationship with Xiao Xian was filled with both competition and the friendship between men. He knew that if Xiao Xian was not the clan head of the Xiao clan, it was very likely that the both of them would have been the best of friends. Unfortunately, the status of the both of them caused them to be destined not to be able to do as they wished. The clan was always at the top spot in their hearts. Tomorrow is the half-a-month dateline that the Hun clan has mentioned. Gu Yuan crossed his fingers. He stared at Xiao Yin and asked, "What do you plan to do?" "What else can I do? I do not have any choice for my father's sake." Xiao Yin shook his head. He also felt a little helpless. Regardless of what the case was, he must rescue his father. This was the promise he had made to his two brothers. Lei Ying and Yin Jin exchanged glances after hearing these words. They could only sigh. They were aware that no one could be blamed for this. The ancient jade in Xiao Yan's hands belonged to the Xiao clan. He had an absolute right to use it as he pleased. Moreover, the current Xiao Yan was also considered a powerful ally in their fight with the Hun clan. This was especially the case after he had exited from the heavenly tomb. Even with their strength, they did not dare to underestimate this member of the younger generation. This was because they understood that by relying on the great strength of a D-state soul, Xiao Yan might not be afraid of them in a fight. Gu Yuan was not surprised at Xiao Yan's reply. He mused for a moment before speaking, "In that case, let's leave tomorrow. The experts from our three clans will follow you this time around. Once your father safely arrives in your hands, all of us will attack together. We must snatch back the ancient jade or destroy it regardless of what happened." Gu Yuan's expression was strangely stern. This was because he understood that if the Hun clan managed to collect all the ancient jades and open the Tushi ancient god mansion, Hun Tiandi would be able to obtain the opportunity to advance into the Dodi class. At that time, it was likely that no one in this world would be able to fight him. This so-called alliance of theirs was undoubtedly like an insect trying to shake a large tree when it came to facing an elite Dodi. It was not completely useless. Xiao Yin nodded in the face of this. With the three clans following him, he would be bolder in confronting the Hun clan. Even though he had reached the D-state soul, it did not mean that Xiao Yin was able to fight with an ultimate expert like Hun Tiandi. Moreover, the Hun clan had many experts. Even if Hun Tiandi did not show himself, just the Nihility devouring flame and the 4 demon saints of the Hun clan would give him a headache. We have also dispatched the news to the Sky Mansion Alliance during this period of time. It is likely that your people will also reach the Burial Mountain Range tomorrow. At that time, our 4 parties will unite. There is no need to fear the Hun clan. Gu Dao said. Xiao Yin nodded again. Currently, the Sky Mansion Alliance had already begun to reveal their strength. Not only was there the ancestor of the Pill Tower and Xiao Qin, but there was also Xiao Yin, who had stepped into the D-state soul. In terms of strength, it was no longer inferior to the Yin and Lei clans. I have already personally built a spatial tunnel linking the Yin, Lei and Gu clans while you were in the Heavenly Tomb. As long as any unexpected occurrence happens in any of the 3 realms, there would immediately be a feedback. The 3 clans has also entered into a state of high alert. All the elders who were in a retreat had been forcefully called out. They will gather together once an order is given. The miserable fate of the Ling, Shi, and Yao clans had gave the remaining 3 clans the greatest warning. Hence, the connection of the space this time around was completely done by Gu Yuan. There should be no one in this world who can break the spatial barrier he had placed without alerting him. Even Hun Tiandi was unable to do it. Of course, this was unless the latter truly reached the Dodi class. Since you have successfully exited your retreat, we are basically fully prepared. Now, we will just have to wait for tomorrow? Everyone's faces became grave after hearing Gu Yuan's words. All of them clearly understood that there will be an earth-shaking big battle tomorrow. The scale of this big battle would likely be the biggest on in the Doqi continent in thousands of years. Night covered the Gu realm. Rays of cool moonlight poured down. Xiao Yin stood within the quiet small courtyard within the bamboo forest. His hands were behind him as his eyes looked at the sky. His expression was a little regretful and complicated. Without realizing it, it had been over a decade since he had arrived at the Central Plains from the Black Corner region. During this period of time, the youth from back then had lost all the tenderness on his face and slowly became the leader of the alliance, which dominated the entire Central Plains from someone who was unknown back then. Of course, the thing that had supported him to slowly progress to this stage was a simple obsession. It was to rescue his father, whom he had not met for decades. "Father, tomorrow, we will reunite again." Xiao Yin clenched his hand. An ancient jade piece appeared in his hand. There was a weak spiritual light being emitted from the ancient jade. Xiao Yan's finger rubbed the spiritual light, after which he lifted his head and inhaled a deep breath of air. Even though the current Xiao Yin had become a peak-level expert whom many on the continent looked up to, he was still unable to forget the doting and warm expression in his father's eyes in that small Wu-Tan city when the former genius who had turned into a useless fellow was being mocked by countless number of people. His father did not become even the least bit cold because of the evaluation from the outside world. Instead, he had reprimanded himself. A key reason that Xiao Yin was able to continue enduring the mockery for 3 years and end up blossoming was because of Xiao Zhan. "Yinner has now reached a far higher level than you have anticipated back then," Xiao Yin muttered to himself. He had trained hard and had finally reached the peak of this continent. However, he had not been able to meet the father whom he missed. Xiao Yin Ji. A gentle, delicate figure gently leaned on Xiao Yan's back while the latter was softly muttering. Soft hands hugged his waist while an extremely beautiful face was lifted under the moonlight, causing the moon itself to become a little dimmer. "Uncle Xiao will be very pleased if he learns of your current achievement." Xiao Yin flipped his hand and grabbed Sun Er's hand. A moment later, he withdrew the emotion within his heart and turned around, after which he grabbed the beauty into his embrace. Suddenly, he smiled and said, "When I was young, I have told Father that I want Sun Er to become my wife. At that time, Father had sternly warned me not to have such wishful thought. However, I can tell that he is extremely pleased and happy with Sun Er. After recusing Father, I will get him to preside over a wedding for us." Sun Er's face gently leaned on Xiao Yan's chest. Her face was a little embarrassed upon hearing these words. However, her pretty eyes were filled with happiness. She gently nodded in an obedient manner. Xiao Yan's heart felt slightly hot as he looked at the delicate and beautiful flower-like alluring pretty face. He laughed and his arm grabbed Sun Er's soft and seemingly boneless waist. He lowered his head in front of Sun Er's embarrassed eyes and killed the beautiful full moist lips. With a wave of his sleeve, the door of the room was automatically opened. His body flashed and he rushed into the room. A bang sounded and the door was tightly shut. The night was quiet while the room was filled with love. The originally quiet Gu clan was filled with the sound of rushing wind when the first ray of sunlight scattered down from the sky on the next day. Many powerful auras rose swiftly. The big war was about to arrive.